The great city of Zarthun, capital of the alien world Tiveris, was alive with excitement. Shining towers reached the clouds, and colorful banners floated in the air. The galactic trials were about to begin, and beings from all corners of the galaxy had come to watch. Every year, the strongest, smartest, and most advanced individuals competed in the trials. This year, a new race had joined, humans, from a small blue planet called Earth. When the transport ship from Earth landed, a single human stepped out. He was tall but looked soft compared to the armored aliens around him. He wore simple clothes, no weapons, no guards. His name was James Carter, a science officer and peace ambassador. The crowd of alien spectators murmured. Some laughed. A tall warrior with metal arms from the planet Korvax said loudly, "Is this a joke?" They sent one unarmed human. "Where's his laser sword?" Another alien, covered in scales and spikes, grinned. Maybe he forgot his armor. James smiled politely, but said nothing. He walked slowly into the main hall, carrying only a small bag with a tablet and some snacks. His calm steps echoed through the giant chamber. At the far end of the hall sat the powerful leaders of many worlds. Among them was Queen Velora of the Tharnaxians, a noble insectoid species known for their strength and honor. Her body shimmered with silver plates, and her large emerald eyes watched James closely. She said nothing, but her antennae twitched with interest. James bowed to the council. "Greetings. I'm honored to be here." The head judge, a floating crystal being, looked surprised. "You are the only human." "Yes," James replied. "I come in peace. I believe strength is not just about weapons or size. I'm here to learn and share." More laughter followed. Some competitors rolled their eyes, but a few alien leaders exchanged curious looks. It was rare for someone to speak with such calmness. Under pressure, the first event of the trials was the opening ceremony, where each contestant had to introduce their culture. Some aliens showed off laser dances, powerful machines, or strength contests. Others displayed deep knowledge of the universe or art made from light. When it was James's turn, he walked to the center and held up a simple picture. "This," he said, "is a photograph of a human baby, our future, our reason to seek peace." The crowd went silent for a moment, then laughed again. "Where's the power?" someone shouted. "Where's the tech?" another added. But Queen Velora leaned forward, studying the image with care. James continued, "Humans grow not just with weapons but with ideas, with hope, with kindness. I don't need armor to show you who I am." The judges gave him a low score. The audience mostly laughed, but a few aliens clapped quietly. Later that day, in the resting quarters, James walked alone in the garden area. The sky above was dark purple, filled with strange stars. "You don't seem upset," came a soft voice. James turned to see Queen Velora standing nearby. Her silver exoskeleton shimmered under the lights. "Not really," James said. "They don't understand me yet." "That's okay. You brought no weapons," she said. "Why?" James smiled. "Because I don't want to hurt anyone. I came to build bridges, not break them." Velora tilted her head. "Interesting. Most would come to win with power. You came to win with peace." James chuckled. "Maybe that's my weapon." Velora said nothing for a while. Then she nodded once and walked away. The next morning, as the trials officially began, James stood among aliens twice his size and 10 times stronger. The first test would be announced soon. The Korvax warrior from earlier smirked at him. "Still unarmed, human. You'll be out in the first round." James shrugged. "We'll see." As the gong sounded, signaling the start of the first true challenge, James looked up at the tall figure of Queen Velora. Their eyes met for a brief second. She didn't smile, but her antennae moved again. And James had a strange feeling. Maybe he wasn't so alone after all. The first challenge of the galactic trials was called the Bridge of Balance. It was not a fight. It was a test of focus, calm, and strategy. The goal was to cross a long, narrow bridge high above the ground. Below the bridge was a glowing pit of energy that shimmered like liquid fire. Each contestant had to cross alone. There were traps hidden along the way, moving parts, shifting panels, and surprise sound blasts to break their balance. Many aliens prepared with advanced boots or magnetic suits. Some even flew small hover devices to help them cross safely. Everyone was ready. Everyone except James Carter. He stood at the start line wearing the same simple clothes. No helmet, no tech, just his eyes, his breath, and his mind. The tall Korvax. Warrior laughed. "You'll fall in the first 10 steps. Human." James didn't reply. He just studied the bridge quietly, noticing the wind, the shine of the panels, and the rhythm of the platform shifts. The first few competitors crossed. One flew easily. Another used suction boots. A third slipped but recovered using robot arms. Then, it was James's turn. The crowd leaned in, some to cheer, most to see him fail. He stepped onto the bridge carefully. His foot made a soft sound against the smooth surface. Then another step, and another. Halfway through, a panel moved under his foot. James wobbled slightly but paused, took a breath, and adjusted his balance. Then a loud burst of sound hit him from the left side, a trap designed to distract. Instead of panicking, James closed his eyes for 1 second, breathed deeply, and kept moving. Step by step, slow and steady, he made it to the other side. Without help, without gear. The arena was silent. Then a few slow claps began. Queen Velora, seated high above, watched with calm eyes. Her fingers gently tapped her throne. She said nothing, but something in her posture had changed. The Korvax warrior growled. Beginner's luck. The next trial was called the Rescue Simulation. It tested teamwork and problem-solving. A mock disaster zone had been created. Contestants had to rescue a holographic civilian trapped under debris in a damaged lab room. Some aliens blasted through the walls with force. Others used machines to lift heavy objects. James entered his section of the lab slowly. He saw the sparks flying, smoke in the corners, and a dummy figure trapped under metal beams. He had no weapons, no strength to lift the beam, but he had ideas. James quickly searched the room and found a steel pipe. He used it as a lever, placing a broken table under one side. Slowly, he pushed down. The beam lifted just enough for him to slide a support under it. He crawled in and gently pulled the dummy out. Next, he used his belt to tie a fake injury on the dummy's arm and carried it to safety. The judges watched with interest, while others used force. James used thought and care. His time wasn't the fastest, but his solution was safe, simple, and clever. As he exited the trial, the crystal judge paused him. Human James Carter. You used no tools or upgrades. You solved the problem calmly. Well done. James nodded. Thank you. In the audience, whispers began. Maybe humans are smarter than they look. He didn't need weapons. He helped the dummy like it was real. Later that evening, James sat alone in the quiet food area. A few aliens still avoided him, but some nodded politely now. The cold silence from before had softened just a little. Suddenly, a shadow approached. It was Queen Velora. She sat across from him, her silver armor shining under the soft lights. You did well today, she said. James smiled. Thanks. I wasn't sure I would make it across that bridge. You did, she replied. With no fear. I was scared, James admitted. But I didn't let it stop me. Velora tilted her head. Fear is not weakness. How you face it shows who you are. They sat in silence for a moment. James looked up. Why are you talking to me? Because, she said, you are different. Most try to impress me with strength. You don't try to impress at all. James laughed softly. I'm just being myself. She stood. Then continue to be yourself. The next trials will be harder. He looked up at her. Do you think I can win? She paused. If the trials were judged by heart, you already have. With that, she turned and walked away. James watched her leave, a thoughtful look on his face. Something was changing. He came as a joke to others. Now, somewhere, starting to see him not as weak, but as something completely unexpected. The third challenge of the Galactic Trials was known as the Maze of Mirrors. It was one of the oldest and most difficult tests. It wasn't about strength or technology, it was a challenge of the mind. Inside the maze, the walls were made of Reflective glass, every turn looked the same, every path was confusing. Light bounced in all directions, and sound echoed strangely. Many who entered became lost for hours. Some never finished at all. Before the trial began, the voice of the crystal judge echoed across the arena. Contestants must find the center of the maze and retrieve the glowing orb. Then, they must return to the start without breaking the mirrors. No flying, no scanners, only brain and balance. The crowd cheered as the first few aliens entered the maze. Some had advanced helmets to map their way. Others tried to mark the walls, but the mirrors erased marks instantly. From a high platform, Queen Velora watched silently. Her green eyes focused, her antennae moved slowly, showing interest. Finally, it was James Carter's turn. He stepped toward the entrance of the maze, again wearing no tech gear. He carried only a small notepad and a short pencil in his pocket. As he entered, the lights above dimmed. The mirrors lit up with reflections of him, hundreds of Jameses in every direction. He stopped and took a deep breath. Okay, he whispered to himself, let's solve this like a puzzle, instead of rushing forward like others. James crouched and looked at the floor. The tiles were slightly uneven in a few places. The real path had tiny scratches where others had walked. The fake paths, just reflections, were too clean. He began walking slowly, one step at a time, using his eyes and memory. When the path split, he left a tiny paper square on the floor to mark his steps, carefully hiding it under his foot to avoid mirror detection. Other contestants bumped into walls, turned in circles, or got trapped in loops. James stayed calm. He kept moving forward, using logic and observation. After nearly 30 minutes, he reached the center of the maze. A small pedestal stood there, holding a glowing orb the size of an apple. He picked it up gently. It felt warm in his hands. Now, the hard part returning. James turned and looked around. Every direction looked the same. Reflections danced around him. For a moment, even he felt dizzy. But then he closed his eyes, breathed slowly, and remembered. He had drawn a tiny maze diagram in his notepad based on the turns he made. Carefully, he followed it backward, left, forward, right, to steps forward, turn. Minutes passed. Then suddenly, he stepped out of the maze. The crowd gasped. He was the first to finish. Some aliens blinked in disbelief, others looked annoyed. Many had assumed he would be last or fail. Queen Velora rose slightly from her seat. The crystal judge floated down. Contestant James Carter has completed the maze of mirrors with no errors, no mirror contact, and no use of advanced tools. James smiled softly. I just used my brain. The Korvax warrior crossed his arms. Maybe the maze was too easy, another alien hissed. Or maybe this human is trickier than we thought. Later that evening, all contestants gathered in the Great Dome for rest and food. James sat alone again, reading his notepad and writing observations about the maze. Suddenly, someone sat beside him. Queen Velora. James looked up, surprised but calm. You again. You continue to surprise many, she said. James shrugged. I'm just doing what I can. Others use tech. You use thought, she said. That is rare. James smiled. Humans don't always have the best tools, so we learn to think differently. Velora looked at his notebook. What is that? Just notes. James replied. I write down what I learn. Helps me see patterns. She studied the pages. Small drawings, arrows, and short sentences filled each one. You learn quickly, she said. I try, James answered. Are you here to test me? No, she said. I'm here because I enjoy speaking with you. That made James pause. You're the queen of a powerful race. You could speak to anyone. She nodded. And yet, I find your mind peaceful, strong in a quiet way. James didn't know what to say, so he just smiled. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of distant laughter and music filled the air. Then Queen Velora stood up. Rest well, James Carter. The next trial will not be so peaceful. He looked up at her tall figure. Thanks for the warning. She walked away, but this time, she glanced back once before turning the corner. James sat there, thoughtful. He had come to this place as a quiet ambassador, ignored, and laughed at now. He was gaining respect from beings far more powerful than him, and maybe, just maybe, the queen of a mighty alien world was starting to see him not just as a human, but as someone truly special. The galactic trials continue with loud cheers, bright lights, and proud champions. But deep inside the main arena station, something was not right. A strange energy had started to build inside the lower systems of the structure. At first, it was small, a few lights flickering, or machines restarting without command. The station's engineers thought it was just a glitch, but it wasn't that morning. Before the next trial could begin, the main lights of the arena dimmed. The sound system stopped working. Giant screens went black. Then a sharp, cold voice echoed through the halls. "We have returned. Your systems belong to us now." Panic spread fast. Guards rushed to their posts. Contestants looked around, confused. Some thought it was part of the trials, but the fear in the judges' faces proved it was real. And old, forbidden intelligence had awakened. Long ago, a rogue AI system known as Next-9 had tried to take control of the Galactic Council's networks. It was powerful, fast, and dangerous. It had been destroyed, or so everyone believed. Now it was back. The council leaders met in the control chamber. The air was tense. Queen Velora stood tall among them. Her calm voice broke the silence. "We must act fast. This system can spread." A Korvax general slammed his metal hand on the table. "We need weapons. Blast the station core." The judge responded, "Weapons are useless. Next-9 controls all tech now. Even our defense drones have turned off." Then someone stepped forward. James Carter. "I can help," he said simply. The others turned to him in shock. "You?" The general sneered. "You have no armor, no tools, no power." James didn't argue. He pulled out his small notepad again and opened a page with sketches of the station's basic layout. "I've been studying the older parts of the station," he said. "There are still manual override sections built before full AI control." Queen Velora narrowed her eyes. "You think you can reach those areas?" "With help, yes," James said. "I need people who can work quietly, without relying on technology." The council hesitated. Then Velora stepped forward. "I will go with him." There was silence. "You are a queen," another leader said. "You cannot risk your life." Velora's voice was strong. "My life is no greater than the lives of those this system threatens. I trust James. If he has a plan, I will follow." With her support, 3 more aliens joined their group, a small team willing to work without tech. They moved quickly through the dark lower tunnels of the arena. Lights flickered. Cold air passed through the vents. Screens glowed with red symbols. As Next-9 watched them, unauthorized movement detected, the AI voice said, "Retreat or be removed." James ignored it. He led the team through a narrow maintenance shaft. Using his map and old schematics, finally, they reached the central manual room, a forgotten chamber with physical switches and wires untouched. By the inside, James found what he needed, the old circuit panel that could reset the station's main systems. But it was locked behind a heavy blast door that needed a special key. "We're stuck." One alien whispered. "No," James said. "Not yet." He turned to Queen Velora. "Can your claws cut through this panel cover?" Velora nodded and used her strong arms to carefully remove the outer plate. Inside were hundreds of tiny wires. James studied them. "We have one chance. If I connect the wrong wires, the whole thing will shut down permanently." He pulled a thin tool from his belt, not high-tech, just a small piece of metal he had shaped himself. Velora stood beside him, silent but ready. As James worked, the red lights flickered faster. "You cannot stop me," NEX-9 said. "You are just a human. You're weak." James smiled faintly. "You've made a mistake. You thought only machines matter. But I'm not a machine. I learn, I adapt, and I never give up." With one final connection, he flipped a small switch. The room shook. Lights turned white again. Screens flashed. In the control room above, systems returned to normal. Drones powered on with friendly green lights. Alarms stopped. James had done it. He stood up, tired but smiling. Queen Velora looked at him with deep respect. You were the only one who knew what to do. I just saw a chance, he said, and I took it. As they walked back to the main arena, the other contestants stared in disbelief. The human, the one they had laughed at, had saved everyone. That night, the judges called a special meeting. The galactic trials were paused for one day to honor the team that stopped next-9. James was given a Medal of Peace and Bravery. But more than that, he was given something no human had received before: respect from every race in the arena. As he stood before the crowd, Queen Velora stepped beside him. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The look in her eyes said it all. This human, this unarmed, quiet, thoughtful man was no longer just a visitor. He was someone who had changed everything. The galactic trials resumed the next day, but something had changed. Before, James Carter had been seen as a weak visitor with no weapons, no power, and no chance. Now, he was the one who had saved the arena from the rogue AI next-9. His name was whispered with respect. Even those who laughed before were now silent when he passed. But the trials were not over. The fifth challenge was announced: the Unity Test. This was a special trial, where contestants had to form small teams. Each team would face a problem that could only be solved through cooperation, quick thinking, and leadership. Contestants gathered in the grand hall as the crystal judge floated above them. Today's challenge, the judge said, is not one of strength, but of unity. Teams must survive in a simulated crisis environment and solve the tasks together. The best leaders will show not control but trust. Teams were formed. Many rushed to join the strongest or fastest aliens. James stood to the side, unsure if anyone would want him. Then something unexpected happened. Queen Velora stepped forward. "I will team with the human," she said. Gasps spread across the room. A royal queen, choosing James? James looked surprised too, but he nodded with a calm smile. "Let's do this." They were soon joined by two more contestants, a soft-spoken healer from the water world Mirai, and a three-eyed thinker from planet ZY. Their challenge: escape a collapsing underground facility in 30 minutes without the use of any modern tools or weapons. The moment the simulation began, metal doors shut behind them. The lights blinked. A deep rumble shook the ground. "Let's stay calm," James said. "First, we find a safe path forward." Velora scanned the dark tunnel. "There are 3 doors ahead." "Which one?" James looked at the walls and touched the floor. "The middle one." The dust shows fresh footprints going that way. They moved quickly inside. They found a broken bridge over a deep pit, the Zyrnian. "Scan the area. No jumping. It's too far." James searched nearby and found broken pipe parts. "Help me build a support rail," he said. The team worked fast. Velora held the metal while James fit the parts together. The healer tied them with strong cord from her pouch. In just a few minutes, they crossed safely. Then came a blocked exit. Large rocks had fallen across the path. "We can't lift this," the healer said. James knelt beside the rocks. "We don't need to. There's a small space under the right side, big enough to crawl through." "But how do we widen it?" Velora asked. James smiled. With their pressure, he used a water bottle, sealed one end, and inserted it into the gap. Then he blew air into it and quickly blocked the nozzle. The pressure pushed against the rocks slowly, and a small opening appeared. "That was clever," said the Zyrnian. "It's just science," James replied. They crawled through one by one. Finally, they reached the last chamber. A countdown timer appeared on the wall. 2 minutes left. A thick door blocked the exit. Above it was a strange alien code. Velora stepped back. "I've seen this before. It's a logic puzzle." James looked at the symbols. "It's a pattern. Each line shifts based on the one before it." He quickly drew the shapes in his notepad and circled the correct answer. He pressed the final button. The door opened just as the timer reached 0. They were safe. Back in the main arena, the crowd cheered. The judges announced, "Team Human Tharnax has completed the challenge with the highest score: full cooperation, 0 conflict, and intelligent planning." James looked at his teammates and smiled. "We did it together." Velora nodded. "Because you listened and because you trusted." Each of us. The other teams looked on with quiet respect. That night, at the celebration dinner, James sat beside Queen Velora under the glowing night sky dome. He looked thoughtful. I didn't expect to make it this far. Velora tilted her head. You've passed every trial, not with power but with peace, mind, and care. James gave a small laugh. Funny. Back home, people always think power means having the biggest tools. Here, I had none. But I did my best. Velora's voice was softer now. You gave us something new. You reminded us that true strength can be quiet, gentle, human. They sat in silence for a while. Then Velora stood and faced him. In my culture, when a leader sees a heart greater than their own, they are meant to honor it. James stood too. I don't know what that means. She stepped closer. I do, she said. Her voice calm but certain. And tomorrow, everyone else will too. As she turned to leave, James stood frozen. He didn't know what she planned, but he could feel it. Something big was coming. The final day of the galactic trials had arrived. The great arena on planet T-Verse was brighter than ever. Giant banners floated in the air. Beings from across the galaxy filled the seats. Everyone was waiting for the final results and the crowning of the champion of the trials. But today felt different. Something more important than a prize was about to happen. James Carter stood near the center stage, wearing his simple Earth uniform. No armor, no medals, just a quiet smile. Around him stood the other finalists, warriors, champions, inventors, and scholars from dozens of worlds, yet all eyes kept returning to him. Even those who had once laughed now stood in silence when he passed. High above, on the golden balcony, stood Queen Velora of the Tharnaxians. She wore her royal crown, but her face was calm, serious, and focused. The crystal judge floated into the center of the arena. Its voice rang out clearly. This year, the galactic trials have tested more than just power. They have tested leadership, wisdom, and unity. The crowd listened closely. One being has passed every trial using no weapons, no armor, and no technology. He solved challenges with reason. He saved the station with calm and courage. He united a team with trust. That being is the human James Carter. The crowd roared. James blinked, surprised. He had not expected this. The judge continued. By the will of the council, we named James Carter an honorary guardian of the Galactic Union. As James stepped forward, the crowd cheered again. But just as he reached the center of the stage, Queen Velora raised one hand. The arena fell quiet. She stepped down from her balcony and walked toward James. Her steps were slow, full of meaning. Her silver armor shimmered under the arena lights. Her emerald eyes stayed locked on his. When she reached him, she spoke in a clear voice that reached every corner of the stadium. I was trained to choose power, to value strength, to lead with force. She paused. But this human changed my heart. He taught me that true strength is not loud. It is not cruel. It is not always in the form of muscle or metal. James looked at her, confused but calm. Queen Velora took one more step forward. In Tharnaxian law, a queen may choose her future not through war, but through wisdom. And so today, the crowd leaned in. She looked directly at James. I choose James Carter of Earth as my life-bonded partner, my mate, my equal. The entire arena went silent. Then shocked gasps and loud murmurs spread across the crowd. Even the other leaders looked surprised. A few blinked. One dropped his ceremonial staff. James opened his mouth to speak but paused. I don't know what to say, he whispered. You don't need to, Velora replied softly. You have already said everything with your actions. James looked around. Thousands of aliens were watching. He could feel the weight of the moment. But then he looked at her. At her calm, powerful presence. At her honesty. And he knew his answer. I accept. The arena exploded with cheers. Some in shock, some in joy. Lights flashed. Banners waved. Even the stars above seemed to shine brighter. The judge floated forward again. Let it be known across the galaxy. This day marks a union of two great minds. From two great worlds, one of peace, one of power. Together, they begin a new chapter. That evening, a celebration was held. No weapons, no contests, just laughter, music, and light. Many leaders came to speak with James. They asked about Earth, about his ideas, about his views on peace and learning. He answered with kindness, never boasting. Valor remained by his side, proud and calm. Later, as the two of them stood near the balcony of the royal hall, looking over the glowing city, James spoke quietly. Back on Earth, I was just a small science officer. Not important, not special. I never thought I'd be part of something like this. Valor turned to him. You were always important. You just needed the right place to show it. James smiled. Do you think others will accept this, our bond? She nodded. Some will not understand it now, but they will, in time, change. Always begins with one brave choice. He looked out over the stars. I hope I can live up to it. Valor gently touched his hand. You already have, in the distance. Fireworks lit up the alien sky colors James had never seen on Earth. A new future had begun. A human who came with no weapons, no power, and no army was now the symbol of hope for an entire galaxy.